Good afternoon, commissioners.
She'll be back in a minute.
Yeah.
Right?
We can start because we have a quorum.
All right.
So, over to you, Vice Chair Rogers. I'll announce Chair Harrington is excused on vacation.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. And Nafisa will be right back. She wanted to run out and grab something to drink real quickly. Supportive housing is our first item of the day. Why don't we convene those who are going to make a presentation up at the table across from me, and we can hear from Molly and Jess and anybody else who wants to be a part of that.
And Vice Chair, I'm actually going to hit this piece off and
Perfect.
part because last week I attended.
Before you continue, Commissioner Treese, I'm just getting some feedback from those in the room and viewing that it's kind of hard to hear. So I'm not sure if we can turn the volume up before we continue. I apologize for interrupting.
No problem.
Turn the fans down. Yeah, way down for Pam.
Yeah.
Off.
Right here. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, I'll lean into the mic a little bit too. So last week I had the great opportunity to work with Molly Rogers, Jess Larson, and Aaron Doyle because I sat in at the Tri-County Chairs meeting for our chair, and the discussion point was what you've seen in the news, what was presented to you in Aaron Doyle's government, our having, thank you, the weekly update memo from government relations. And there were several articles in the newspaper about the fact that there are discussions currently going on at Metro regarding the potential overage of the SHS income from SHS money. And I wanted to just address this quickly because that's an issue that is being discussed. It's being discussed between the chairs, between the 7 housing authorities and Metro separately. The discussion that you're going to hear today is about the direction that our staff is going for this calendar year with the SHS program. So I want to make sure we're separating those two things. But I also wanted to take this time, instead of doing it during my update, to let you know that I did sit in on that meeting. It's the meeting was supposed to be focused on polling, but that had been done in preparation for this discussion, but it quickly got down to the nitty gritty around what the issues are. And there are varying levels of support, as you can imagine, from Clackamas and from Multnomah County. And our position is that we are waiting to see and understand more about what the information tells us before we take a stance. So I wanted to give you that update, and I also want you to know that I took this call sitting in my electric car in front of the house that had no power while the freezing rain was coating my car. But but the good news is that it was really helpful to have all the pre-meetings with our staff. Jess spent a lot of time with me ahead of the meeting that the 4 of us had in preparation just to get ready. So there's a lot of information out there. And when Catherine gets back, we have a meeting scheduled to debrief on this Tri-County Chairs meeting as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Molly and Jess. And remember, what they're going to be talking about is their plan as if there were no other discussions going on out there in the world about how they're going to continue the good work, focus on staying at the same level that we've been at, which is 97% of our monies are being spent. And that's an important number for you to know in relationship to the other conversation. So with that, back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Treese and the other commissioners. There's a lot of flurry and a lot of things happening with the supportive housing and services measure. So we wanted to take a few moments with you and update you on some of those recent news. A couple things I would just like to add, Commissioner, is that we've been told by Metro right now as they're going to engage with the stakeholder advisory table. We're hoping to get more information on who they would like to participate on that stakeholder. They've asked at a minimum, the 3 chairs of the tri-counties to be part of that stakeholder group. We've also been told there's no predetermined outcome for that stakeholder table. But there are certainly things that we're.
Believe that?
I think there's certainly an angle that we are hearing, and that's been solidified by some of the polling results that they're talking about.
And I do want to add to that, that Molly did a great job and by really specifying who is going to be at the table and asking the question at this meeting, can we be assured that you're going to have representatives from SHS, the SHS group, as well as from the Affordable Housing Group?
And I just wanted to let folks know, if you hadn't watched the work session that Metro had with their counselors, we heard really explicitly from President Peterson the need and expressed desire to have stability as a core value for some of this reform work, because we are moving people into homes. We are moving people into shelters and pod villages. Those folks are relying on our continued support and assistance so that they don't have uncertainty go back to housing instability. So I think that's just sort of really a core value for us as we move into that next phase. But I want to be really, really clear on something that Commissioner Treese just said. People keep echoing this idea that we are struggling with spending the resources, and that is blatantly not true in Washington County.
And that the comments are generally directed at the tri-county area. In Washington County, we've been very successful and we are at that 97% spend. So it's a little hard to read those newspaper articles where you see that the counties aren't spending the money when we know that our county is.
And how we are addressing some of our carryover is actually the thrust of our work session with you today. We get to have 45 minutes with you. So we're excited to bring all those that plan and recommendations we have. Next slide. Thank you. We're going to really just, the strategic questions we would like anchored as we go through a lot of data and a lot of charts with you. As we work through the current implementation of the SHS measure, the first is, would you support a work plan amendment to release a supportive housing notice of funding availability in program 3? That's this current fiscal year. And secondly, would you support the launch of next year's work plan to include the forecasted anticipated revenue from Metro as our new budgeted baseline? There's a lot of things we're going to talk about. Jess is going to cover what that really means in terms of the new forecast and our new budgeted baseline. But in order to us to keep our public trust in us spending in the interventions that make the most difference, we need to continue to make sure we're at that 97% level. Next slide. But first, I want to just share with you some incredible news. Thrilled to share with you that our newly created local rental assistance program has helped the 1,000th formerly homeless household. That's right, 1,000th. 1,000 household get into housing. Yay. Woohoo. That means, yep. What that really means is our innovative program called ARLA, that's what we affectionately call it. It's working and it's making a meaningful dent in ending homelessness. So we are already 2/3 the way through our initial goal for ARLA in year 3, and we have 7 years to go. So we're on a great track. We're also proud recently that we exceeded Governor Kotek's executive order goals last year of creating or extending 174 shelter beds. And we look forward to continued support from the governor this year. And I just want to take a moment to thank our many partners who made these accomplishments possible. This is big time. Next slide, please. Since we will be talking over the next few slides about 2 different program years, year 3 and 4, I just wanted to remind you all that SHS resources are planned through an annual work plan process. The timeline of this slide calls out the key moments of this cyclical SHS planning. So the beginning of our program year corresponds with the beginning of our fiscal year, July 1. And then sometime in the fall, we receive an updated forecast, revenue forecast from Metro that really determines the program revenue for the next program year. We then launch work plan development in the winter in tandem with the county's budget process. And then during this time, we are continually collaborating with our partners, our advisory bodies of this board on the development of the work plan and the corresponding budget. The work plan drafts to Metro are due in April. So that's what we're going to be sort of teeing up for you today. And then they're refined and finalized before the start of the new program year on July 1. So it's also a reminder we will be coming back to you with some further development. So this is really a pulse check moment for you all. And then the process begins again. Next slide, please. This is a slide you've seen before showing the impact of our work planning and the efforts of our partners. So in just 2 program years, we've strategically built a system of care that can be sustained with SHS resources. With each revenue forecast, we have scaled our programs in case management, in shelter, and in housing placements to address the unmet needs with proven results. You can see these results and this growth has been exponential. I'm now going to turn it over to Assistant Director Jess Larson to discuss the revenue that makes all this possible.
Thank you, Molly. Good afternoon, commissioners. Jess Larson, I use she and her pronouns. Pleased to be with you today. So this is also a familiar slide, probably to you. You're looking at the first 2 years of actual expenditures and how that grew year over year. As Commissioner Treese mentioned, in year 2, we expended 90% of our budgeted authority with this SHS revenue, and we are on track to expend the vast majority, if not more, more on that in just a second, in our current program year for year 3. You're also seeing the growth of the revenue forecast. So year 2's budget was based on, I think it was a $50 million forecast for Washington County in year 2, and we expended 97% of that. Actually, we received more revenue than that. So there'll be more on this in just a minute when we talk about our carryover program. In year 3, we're currently budgeted for $70 million. That was the initial forecast going into this year. And you can see the wide array of program growth across various services, from sheltering to long-term rent assistance, medium-term rent assistance, the Regional Investment Fund shelters, and more. So now we're going to get into the new information, Metro's updated 5-year forecast. And this is a complex chart here, so I'll just walk you through quickly. As you know, when this program began, we were guesstimating. The financial experts were trying to understand what was the potential of this revenue. So we had initial forecasts, but it was based on very limited data. And as revenue began to be collected in 2021, we would have more information and Metro would update those forecasts. So you can see the gray bar is the initial forecast in 2020. Then there's an updated forecast in 2021. And then in December 2022, we get our first 5-year forecast from Metro. And that indeed is what we based our current program budget year on. But they have further information, and revenue collection has exceeded this initial forecast from the initial 5-year forecast in December 2022, and have a much better understanding of the tax base that generates these 2 tax mechanisms, the high income earner tax and also the high grossing business tax. Together are generating for Washington County's allocation approximately $30 million more than was previously forecasted, and growing incrementally across that 5 years. So that's what this bar chart is showing you is the updated 2023 forecast over time and how that compares to what we were planning for last year this time. And now the new reality of what we will continue planning for and implementing our responsibilities according to the local implementation plan and our intergovernmental agreement with Metro.
Just I have a question for you before you move on.
Sure, go ahead.
And that's, so the gray bar is when we didn't know, we were guesstimating, he said. And then we sort of had an understanding of what was expected to come in terms of collecting the taxes. And then the yellow is what actually came to the county. Is that
Not quite, Commissioner. Thank you for the
is it
clarification.
all forecasts?
These are all forecasts, and each time they create an updated forecast, it's definitely based on more information. And they're forecasting this year, right now, they're forecasting 2023 with 2023-24 revenue coming in the door. So the first bar of any year's forecast does look a lot like actuals, but from then on, it's actually a projection of what's anticipated.
And if you were to juxtapose, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have my mic on. Oh, don't remind me. I put my, but I apologize if anybody didn't hear. I'm basically asking the same question again anyway, in a different way. But Jess, is there an opportunity? First of all, I like to say that the first two slides that you all shared, I really like it. And I really like the slide before this one. And in recent conversations, actually used it for, to understand a bit more about the Measure 110's revenue allocations and what was spent and how it was spent. So this is great. Not this one, the one before. It's what I'm referencing in terms of the Measure 110 funding piece. But this slide, is there an opportunity to juxtapose what actually came in? Or is that the next? Yeah.
Up until this current fiscal year, beyond looking 24, 25 and beyond, we're just living with forecasts.
Can I just make one clarification? This is supportive housing services
Right.
revenues, not Measure 110.
No,
I
yeah,
would
you
make that
misunderstood. No, I was using an example of could you go to that slide before, Jess Larson? I was saying, I really appreciate this slide. It really demonstrates the impact and also how we're spending to really have a positive impact which is why what you said earlier about Washington County not being in the same boat in terms of our spending of the SHS money is because of that. We really are spending meaningfully and successfully. So, and then I was using it in different conversation about Measure 110, wouldn't it be great if there was a slide like this?
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, that's what I was, because not that I like one thing and I'm advocating everyone to replicate, but it just told the success story. So.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I think we can absolutely work on a separate table that you start showing what was expended compared to budgeted, compared to forecasted, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I just
Start seeing
just
year to
wanted
year. I think this is really also depicting how complicated it is to budget around a constantly changing forecast. So that's been our challenge the last couple of years. We're hoping to see some leveling off of what we think of as sort of a new baseline on here, but we can absolutely get you that data comparing the two. Thank you.
This chart also suggests why the other discussions are occurring too. That's the tie-in here. Just pointing that piece out.
So looking at our immediate work in front of us for Washington County, we go back to what we've been planning for, how we've been building this program each year with those forecasted revenues that turned into actuals and then actual expenditures as well. And what we know is for our current fiscal year, we are likely to receive approximately $38 million in addition to what was originally forecasted, the 70 million plus 38 million. Coming in the door right now, we receive this revenue every month directly as Metro collects this revenue. So we're now looking at likely additional $38 million for this program year, and then can confidently plan for a program of $115 million through SHS for the next fiscal year. And just a quick point of clarity in, well, actually, it might be easier for me to describe this with the next slide. Because while we've been building this program and the revenue has not been yet fully known and fully stable, we've been both underspending in the first program year, didn't really understand in the second program year because we spent 97% of the budget. But in both of the program years 1 and 2, there was also unexpected revenues received because there wasn't enough information to fully understand the tax bases that we now have. So the combination of underspending in year 1 and unexpected collections in years 1 and 2 have generated a carryover or a contingency fund that is in addition to the program annual budget. And we came to your board in August to discuss the carryover fund and program guidance to plan for expenditures with carryover funding. And we got direction from you that these 4 types of investments in built infrastructure, like physical investments in our shelter capacity, upstream investments such as preventing homelessness in the first place with expanded eviction prevention resources, system infrastructure, investing in our community-based service providers with capacity building, for example, and fiscal stability, ensuring stable reserves as required with the IGA and as advised through our financial experts are the guiding sort of investments to help inform our carryover strategy year over year. And so with that, we created a 3-year carryover budget plan, if you will, and that is a part of our reporting to Metro on SHS expenditures and planned investments. And some of those investments with our roughly $100 million carryover fund that was in place when we started this fiscal year is planned for the investments you'll see in the box. We have those capital investments going out to some of our shelter projects. We've expanded eviction prevention by $10 million this year. We've made a commitment to help support the capital needs of the Center for Addiction and Triage and Treatment Center, and then also planning for an upcoming NOFO for access centers. And as you know, we're working on a PSH acquisition as well. Plus, again, maintaining those required reserves. So that is our current 3-year carryover fund plan, and we will update this every year as that carryover budget changes based on the actual revenue received and any underspent funding from the previous fiscal year. Currently, I will go back very quickly to this slide. We have an $86 million approved budget with SHS funding. $70 million is the forecasted revenue for this fiscal year, and $16 million is the initial investments from that carryover budget. So we're already spending down our carryover plan. And in fact, our colleagues will be coming forward with recommendations for a supplemental budget adjustment to continue expeditiously investing in some of these carryover expenditures here that were described. So we're going to keep spending from the carryover plan in addition to building out and spending the operations of our year-over-year program budget.
I have a question. So if there were to be an opportunity come up that was not anticipated, we've seen this happen and we're planning around different things. Do we use, if we decide to move forward with an opportunity, do we use reserve funds or do we try to spread it out over a budget year and increase the budget for a potential purchase or renovation? Does that make sense?
I think so. I think it's a great segue to, I believe, maybe even your next slide, Jess. What we've learned along the way, there's some uses that are really perfect for carryover resources. Carryover really being, we view it as one time only.
Mm-hmm.
The ongoing operations is what we're considering as it's our baseline budget that we need to, that was part of that forecast and how we project out. But carryover is really great opportunities for something like acquisition, renovation, capital resources.
Mm-hmm.
It also could be for some of our eviction legal defense work. So kind of one time only, but an infusion and can really make a big impact. There's, like Jess mentioned, we've also invested in the organizations who are doing this work because many of them have had to be on this growth trajectory along with us. So investing in their capacity with great uses of those funds. So if there are opportunities that you know of, please send them our way. We can build some of these as part of our carryover plan, but we do have 3 years worth of planned programming and more housing and more interventions as part of that 3-year plan. But we are constantly doing work plan development, and we can be always adjusting.
Thank you.
Great. So thank you for these questions. They've actually been really helpful to set us up for the next part of the presentation. And we want to talk to you about one of these strategic investment areas of investment that we foresee as an important, critical sort of upfront intervention in our system of care as we continue to build out those ongoing operations. So hopefully you've seen how the forecast leads into budget planning. And then we also have this additional budget that we're using through the carryover funding to augment with ongoing operations budget with additional one-time investments.
I have a question about the capacity building portion of this pie chart. It seems pretty small compared to the other breakouts. Is that because there's other systems that are doing this that we're partnering?
I'm sure that there are other capacity investments going into our community-based service providers. Right now, we have a program to invest $30,000 for technical assessment of each organization's needs, plus up to $200,000 for each of the 25 service provider organizations that are contracted with us based on that assessment that they do. So that is the current, it's about, I think, $5 or $6 million of capacity building based on this specific capacity building program. And we may adjust and decide that there's additional capacity needs in our system, especially we're right now working with our health share partners around preparing for the capacity needs of our system to implement using Medicaid resources. So another wave of capacity building is anticipated, and we'll continue to assess the needs of our organizations as we continue to grow.
And then I don't see the pie chart for the eviction prevention, but is that on the?
I think it's the dark blue or almost purple. Yeah.
The dark blue?
Is it,
Second
yeah,
from
or
the bottom.
purple?
Sorry.
The darkest color in the pie chart
In the pie chart, oh, okay.
is the eviction
some reason-
prevention resources. I think that amounts to $30 million, which currently is a $10 million investment for 3 years.
Right.
All right, so taking a moment to remind us about a conversation we've had many times as we've been building out the supportive housing services program, and specifically focusing on supportive housing. We often talk about it as a 3-legged stool that creates supportive housing. There's a physical space, the building that hosts the program. There's the rental assistance that ensures that every single participant who comes through that program can afford the rent, even if their income is 0. We use ARLA often, but there are a variety of different rent assistance programs. And then there are the supportive services or the wraparound supports, the mental health case management, the recovery programming, the other case management that brings the services to that site to provide long-term stability or to support the programmatic needs of the participants there. A very popular or familiar program you're well aware of is Heartwood, where we have the physical site plus the rent assistance plus case management services provided by Sequoia Behavioral Health and our partners at Community Partners for Affordable Housing, providing resident services. That's one example of supportive housing, but there are many kinds that include recovery housing, transitional housing, and more. And this is an area of need that we're wanting to further consider with with the board today. When we set out to build the SHS program with our local implementation plan, we knew we wanted to commit to no fewer than 1,650 ARLA vouchers, rent assistance vouchers for households who would be in need of long-term rent assistance, in addition to case management services to end their homelessness. And of those 650 ARLA vouchers, we also knew that renting out in the community through the tenant-based program, where you can take that voucher and go rent from any landlord in the community, might not be sufficient to provide the level of services and care for all the higher needs households we serve. So we set an additional goal that of those 1,650 ARLA vouchers, we wanted to project base, if you will, is a term of the industry. We wanted to locate that rent assistance in a site-specific program with those wraparound services. So we set a goal for 500 supportive housing units. And we're slowly tracking forward in that goal, but not at the pace that we'd hoped to see at this point in our program growth. So we have our partners at the Viewfinder who quickly signed on for 30 PSH vouchers in their program. We added the Heartwood in year 2, and we're working on an additional potential property here in year 3. But we're far from our goal of 500. And as we continue building out the program, we're seeing that this is creating a challenge in our system of care that households aren't always set up for success in the limited housing options that we have that are primarily those tenant-based vouchers. We're seeing higher levels of need in our community. Some of the folks who've gone to one of these PSH sites, for example, even at the Heartwood or the Viewfinder, really needed a higher level of supportive service before they ended up in an independent apartment where they had their own lease and their own keys and their own responsibilities as a tenant. We also see that there are other bottlenecks in the system where people who need to be served at the state hospital, for example, are having a hard time getting approved to go into the state hospital because people who are in the state hospital beds are having a hard time leaving because there aren't available supportive housing programs, recovery programs, behavioral health programs, or PSH programs available for them. So there's a bottleneck kind of impacting other systems of care when we have these limited housing options in our system.
Would you remind me which one Heartwood is?
The Heartwood Commons was previously the Aloha Inn as a hotel
Got
we
it.
purchased and
Okay.
renovated.
Okay.
Thank you for the question,
Okay.
Commissioner.
And what's the name of the one that we toured on 99? Up close to the interchange that I was very late for.
The new hotel that we've acquired, that our partners at Family Promise of Tualatin Valley, Bridge Home is the name
Okay.
that they've given to that project. And that is operating as a family shelter at this time.
Yep.
So what we're sort of talking about here is the programs between shelter and permanent housing. There's usually a variety of transitional program, higher levels of care that aren't quite shelter, but aren't quite independent housing. And without that sort of in-between variety of housing, supportive housing models, we're seeing these other impacts in our system. And another thing that we're learning here in year 3 is that we'd hoped that our affordable housing portfolio or the projects under development in the pipeline right now through the Affordable Housing Bond would be really great opportunities to layer permanent supportive housing units in those projects. And that has proven to be true in some projects like the Viewfinder, but not as often as we'd hope. It's not always ideal to program after the fact with permanent supportive housing. Not every building is going to be suitable, depending, maybe it's a family-based program or it's a building not quite close enough to other services and transportation, for example. So we're learning we can't count on that traditional affordable housing pipeline to help us achieve this goal of 500 supportive housing units. So this is a quick status of where we're at right now with supportive housing and an opportunity that we'd like to pose for the board to take immediate action to address this gap, this emerging gap in our system of care with the resources that we are anticipating for this current fiscal year. We see an opportunity to create a capital funding solicitation or a NOFA for supportive housing. We can use those resources we're anticipating imminently and catalyze some projects that we are aware of that are in our community. We have the Elm Street that was recently acquired. Some of these bridge shelters, Commissioner, that you were referencing might be opportunities for redevelopment into supportive housing programs.
Can you tell me what NOFA, the letters stand for?
Thank you, Commissioner. Notice of opportunity funding available.
Notice of funding availability.
The O is of notice of funding availability. Thank you. So an opportunity to catalyze some projects that we are aware of to perhaps with any of the affordable housing bond projects in the pipeline that have not finalized. Maybe there's an opportunity to put permanent supportive housing in them before the construction begins and really plan for that programming upfront. And then, of course, as mentioned earlier, continuing to leverage opportunities for alignment with Medicaid and our health system partners. So this is an opportunity we want to bring forward for your consideration today. And what we're specifically recommending is that we take that work plan for year 3 and we make an amendment. This is a part of the procedure with our intergovernmental agreement with Metro, that our annual work plan can be updated as the needs of our community adjust and the reality of our resources are updated. So we would amend that work plan to include a new goal around supportive housing that would be made possible through this notice of fund availability. There it is. We're estimating around a $30 to $50 million funding opportunity that would be released this spring. And it would provide capital funding for a variety of housing, supportive housing programs, recovery housing, transitional housing, perhaps hotel conversions, permanent supportive housing, all housing consistent with Population A goals with the SHS program as the program is designed to serve. And then we would, in that capital funding for these one-time resources, commit to the ongoing operation needs to ensure for the programming of those buildings using that new baseline of SHS.
And is it the underlying assumption or sort of like the goal for still low barrier or high barrier? Does that change now that we have this?
Well, a
funding?
founding principle of supportive housing is that in all cases, we're working towards low barrier programming to screen participants into our programs, whatever that means, while maintaining the safety and accountability of the program operations for all. So yes, low barrier would continue to be a principle of supportive housing, just like it is with all of our SHS programs.
So this amendment to the work plan wouldn't change that part?
It would not. Though, Commissioner, let me make a finer point here, because sometimes low barrier gets equated with with wet housing, if you will, or the permission to use drugs or alcohol on site. And that may be the case in certain housing models, but in recovery housing, we absolutely want to ensure a drug and alcohol-free program to support the participants' needs as they're working through the recovery program. So it's still a low barrier program, but the programmatic specifics are designed for the population and the program at hand.
If I could ask a question about the 30, this is a significant number, and I'm actually in support of this. So, but I just, for my own edifications and others listening, while this is significant, if we didn't do this amendment, where have you historically spent the last 2 years, this money, or is this coming out of the reserve? Is the pool of the reserve getting, okay.
Thank you. So the reason there's a range here is we want to do a little more financial analysis, but what we're hearing from the updated forecast is we can anticipate an additional 38 million. Plus, as you've seen, we have a current carryover plan that is in alignment with these investments. So we might use a combination of unanticipated or newly anticipated revenue for year 3, plus an addition of the carryover funds that we currently have to find the right amount of funding to go out in this specific opportunity.
And then last question I have is, since this is a capital funding and there's potentially a funding gap with the CAT, could the CAT tap into this too?
We've already supported the CAT through.
Oh, they would be rolled out. Okay.
Yes, they are a part of our carryover plan already. And there's a lot of great alignment happening programmatically in addition to the capital needs at the CAT with the Supportive Housing Services Program. So I'll wrap us up here quickly so we can get on to your questions and final discussion. Simultaneous to preparing this amendment to our current work plan, year 3, we would also like the board's recommendations and support to move forward in planning for our year 4, which we do every year at this time. And using that new forecast as our new baseline for program operations. We would expect that the goals and budgeted investments and commitments of the year 4 work plan would be a combination of maintaining and sustaining the ongoing operations of the programs we've already built, and some additional program growth where still needed. For example, in the supportive housing programming that we're describing here, we also have access centers coming online that will become a part of our new ongoing baseline operations of the supportive housing services when we have those programs in place. So mainly sustaining and supporting what has already been built, and some additional growth as we go into year 4, because now there is a new baseline to grow to with this updated forecast. So that is the work planning we'd like to kick off after our discussion with you today, and in partnership with our community-based providers and, of course, our advisory bodies and other community engagement. So with that, I'll turn it back to Director Rogers to wrap up our presentation and turn it.
Okay, so as you see, going back to our cyclical nature of our work planning, we hope to use a blend of our portion of our carryover funds, as well as the continued operations for what we call our base system of care. So all the emergency shelters we've built, maintaining our 400 plus year-round shelter beds, and then in some cases relocating some of our temporary shelters to permanent sites. Next slide as we get through here. And we hope, really what we really wanted to do is open this up. There's a lot of information we shared with you, a lot of data. I think it's the blending the various different forecasts with the carryover plan, as well as what we view as what's going to be the new budgeted baseline, is a lot of information, but that's what we're constantly having to pivot and understand what's a good use of those resources. How do we grow a system of care that we can sustain? And I just want to acknowledge we have not achieved our supportive housing goals yet. We're very much along the way. We've built an incredible system for places for people who have been unsheltered for a long time. And I just want to hone in on one key point. Jess mentioned briefly about this notion of population A. Really what we're talking about for supportive housing are people who have been chronically homeless. So they have disabling conditions. They've been homeless for a very long time. So a lot of the folks we've been seeing out in some of the camps that have now moved into some of the pod villages, we need the next level of care for them so they can live in a permanent housing and not have to keep moving around, but with the level of healthcare and other services that we're seeing that they need to stay stably housed. So you guys have asked a few questions along the way. Just want to open up for any more clarifying questions until we get a poll.
Jerry, anything you got?
Well, I just remember when this whole initiative was going to the voters, and they wanted $250 million, and that was a hard line for them, and that impacted, of course, who they taxed and how much they taxed. And everybody, at least I thought, $250 million is a lot of money. It's $2.5 billion over 10 years. That's a lot of money. Now we're looking at probably $350 million a year and going on out. And this is a great plan. So I really appreciate the work that you put in on this. It's very important when we have an additional inflow of money of that's significance. It's important that we have a good plan, and I appreciate what you've done here. Question is, where's the end? I mean, when is enough to take care of the program? I guess. I mean, it's still, this is a mind-boggling amount of money annually. So where do we reach a point where we say we're good?
I know we're going to talk about the potential for Metro thinking about some reforms and at future work sessions, and that wasn't necessarily the focus for today, but it is the core question for any reform package. What do we consider the core system of care that we know that we're addressing, that we're reducing the inflow of people who are experiencing homelessness? And there always been a priority for those who have been chronically homeless, the folks who've been out for a very long amount of time, who all the systems have failed. And yes, this is getting us into the next systems alignment work we need to do with healthcare, with understanding the long-term needs for people. So I think it is something Chair Harrington has very much been vocal about as we do those kind of conversations with Metro, because if there is a portion of some of it getting changed to a different use, we need to make sure we have our system of care fully funded. So then especially those that have made huge strides in the last few years, we don't pull back from that.
Mhm. Yeah, I completely agree. And I guess I'm just thinking of, I think when we initially voted for this for a 10-year period of time, knowing that there may be a renewal, of course, that's always in the conversation. But when do we start bending the curve? So to me, as you put it, Jess, we're trying to build the foundation to get them started, get them into housing and other needs that they may have, and then move them on up the housing food chain, so to speak. When do we start bending that curve so that maybe we can reallocate some of this money into the next stage and it moves on out? So we have then success, I think, all continuum, and it doesn't take $350 million a year forever to maintain that.
Thank you for the question. I think that first, I would say, I think we've already seen a bending of the curve with our point in time count. We went down for the first time on chronic homelessness, right? So it's working. We can see that. Also, we can also see that homelessness across the country is increasing year over year. And there's always going to be forces beyond our homeless services system of response that will impact the inflow of homelessness that come to our emergency rooms every year, no matter how big of a system we build and sustain. So that is a great question for us and our leaders at every level of government to continue asking how much do we need to sustain in order to be responsive to the needs in our community that are changing over time with other market forces and housing conditions. And then the last thing I'll offer is that the measure right now is designed in this 75-25 split in priorities to population A and population B, meaning that the vast majority of resources should be spent on addressing chronic homelessness, and some resources should be spent on addressing prevention or short-term homelessness for non-disabled households. Another option for leadership consideration down the road when we really truly bend that curve on chronic homelessness is to reevaluate if there's value in putting more resources into the long-term rent assistance program for all low-income households, not just chronically homeless households, so that we're having a broader impact on prevention long-term for low-income households and not just dealing with primarily chronic homelessness. So there's lots of different decision points along the way as we get further along the line in this program.
Great, thank you. That was a very good answer. I appreciate but I also appreciate your long-term vision on this because that's what we have to have. So thank you. Yeah, I'm done.
Pam?
Well, I want to say thank you for the work that you've done. It's very impressive. And the fact that we've been able to get your data in a format that allows us to interpret what's going on. I think to Commissioner Willie's point, it's a mind-boggling amount of money for a mind-boggling problem. I mean, they kind of go together here. But I appreciate your concept about when is the curve bending enough. But I think we have to remember that the forces at work here aren't just those that are in the purview of this type of money. We've got behavioral health issues. We've got workforce training issues. We've got a lot of pieces that have to go together that help lift up people so that they're not in these situations. So without addressing everything, we can't expect this money to address everything. I just want to.
Yeah, it isn't a fixed environment right now.
Exactly.
Right.
And the other thing that I would say is that as we move through the future here, it's the target just shifts a little bit all the time. And that's what I depend on our staff to be interpreting how those things are shifting. Do we have enough affordable housing? What is happening over there? What are we doing here in relationship to the resources to support people through our CBOs and capacity building, all those different pieces. So I'm really comfortable with a thumbs up on the questions that you've asked here, but I am looking forward to the questions. I've been on that inside discussion with the chairs about this, all this money, and there's 6 different questions that the chairs are asking of Metro, and one of them is what is this going to cost long term to solve this problem? Where do we need to be? And Jerry, it's exactly the question you're asking here. So I when Catherine returns, it'd be great to have some sort of breakdown of for the entire commission about what are some of the questions that are being asked of Metro and of this program as we move forward, so we know where our needs truly are. So
I think I asked my questions along the way, so I don't really have a question for you. I do have a question for we have the housing director here, so I will have a question about the something else about Metro. But before I do that, I just want to say I really appreciate this. It's a thumbs up for me. I appreciate the system level thinking that you have in this work and how you're amenable to the change and go the direction of where the people are heading and amend this. I came in 2021, so I've seen your leadership, Jess, and I've seen you witness and make a difference. So the time, place, and the time and count, point and count that you reference, I've seen the impact you've had through your leadership, through your system level thinking. So good job, and I hope you pat yourself on the back, as well as the many teams that make this happen. I know it's not an individual thing, and it's not a one person problem solving issue, but I just appreciate the housing folks in Washington County because I've seen active encampments to just street level parking problems to just, so I've seen it all and I just see it from paper. You see it the real well. So thank you to all your do. And I think my vision for this amendments that you're recommending is that, and this is something you're also aware, but just something to consider that, whoever gets these funding, that we somehow contract or have a expectation that if people are in permanent house, supportive housing, like the Heartwood Commons, yet they're not mentally, physically there to be housed in there, and the alternative is to be in the streets, that we can tap into these other systems to say, we have tenants that cannot be because they're breaking the landlord rules, but they can't be in the streets. The street can't be the alternative here, and that you would have to accept. So I don't know, we're not forcing them to accept, but if we're going to give money from Washington County, I hope the expectation is that they will be the fallback to whoever isn't compliant to the supportive housing services and following the landlord's rules. And then they're back in the streets. And then you have another point point. What is it? How do you say it? Point in time count problem again, because you have that number that's skyrocketing. So that's just my expectation, hopefully, or hope. I'm not going to say expectations, but hopefully you can facilitate however you can weave it into the.
Commissioner, it's our expectations that you said it, couldn't have said it better. That is exactly what we're aiming to solve for here.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. And then the other question, since we have the housing director here, is there any information you could share with us where Metro is heading around the affordable housing bond?
So just that framing is essentially the affordable housing bond has been largely fully committed,
Mhm.
which is great news for our housing production. We still have a few projects that are, on its way. But that was their frame in their work session is since the housing bond is pretty much allocated and we still have a housing crisis and we still see the need for more housing production, frankly, for all income levels. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that. They were looking at, that part of the stakeholder committee is looking at three options. The first is another housing bond.
Mhm.
The challenge, of course, is that adds another tax as opposed to continuing the same level. So the other option is frankly do nothing, not refer any bond or any revenue. And then the third is what hence I did mention that seemed to be where the angling was, is diverting a portion of the SHS measure to instead of passing another bond. But for more that housing focus.
And I think, I don't know where you'd land on those options, but it just seems to me like if we're seriously going to look at peeling off a part of the SHS money and dropping it into affordable housing, that we need to have a better picture of the questions I was talking about.
Yeah.
What's the capacity, the demand, and how long are we going to sustain this?
And those are
Before we start
exactly,
stealing money from us.
and those are exactly the questions that the chairs have presented. The piece that I'm at least hopeful about is we know that the three county chairs will sit at this stakeholder table at a minimum. They'll sit at this table and they together with, frankly, with our staff and Catherine's leadership have put together these 6 questions. And they've all agreed that these 6 questions need to be addressed before Metro makes a decision. And I'm certain that those 6 questions will come to that stakeholder table.
And we will, of course, come back here. We've got plans to update you on a monthly basis as those conversations progress, especially if it looks likely that they will refer another measure. It's actually not clear if that's the outcome. So that, yes, I think we're all on the same page, and having your leadership and your support helps us have those kind of.
And that was why my sarcastic comment to start with, but probably was inappropriate.
Anything, Commissioner Rogers?
Well, I'll finish up. Yeah, we're over, but I'm pleased because it's been a good conversation. I have a few comments regarding things that you have within your control and a few that you don't. So the things that you do have within your control, I like very much that you're planning. I think that's the important part. So your question about the no flood, we now know what that means. I'm in agreement. And do we take a look at for your work plan? I agree to that too. It'd be foolish not to. So those are easy ones. Those are the ones you do. I also liked your comments about sustainability, and that will draw me into the comments that I have that it is very troubling. I won't be here, but people I think in the future are going to wonder exactly how this is all going to work, and I think that plays to Jerry's comments. We're seeing, I happen to work with a lot of people who pay the tax, and respectfully, the people who are around those tables making the decision, I would venture most of them don't pay those taxes. So income earners are not happy. And so what you saw out of the state of New York, and the city of New York City, is an exodus. What you saw across the nation in Los Angeles, exodus. What you saw in New Jersey now, exodus. What you're seeing in Multnomah County, exodus. And we're blessed with being high income because of some high tech support. But we got to be very careful in terms of how we approach these. Nothing that you don't know. And for those who work in economic circles, that would be Jerry with long history and Pam, have worked with a lot of people who pay this, and frankly, they're looking elsewhere. And so if we don't have some kind of buy-in by everybody, we may find ourselves another place where there's lots of needs for lots of projects and nobody to pay them. And so that's concerning to me, honestly. And I don't know where that all ends, but I think we need to do it. The other questions that are being asked, just so that you know, is beyond our control, beyond state of Oregon, that we have a border that we're seeing, 10 million people have come across it this year. How much of that is impacting us? These are the questions I get asked. I don't know the answer. But how much of that's impacting our system, and will that continue? Again, Jerry's sustainability question, is there ever, an evening out if you have those kinds of situations? Can we afford it? Can we continue to afford it? So I think we've shown our compassion in our hearts by supporting things. I'm only saying, is that sustainable in the future, not only at the county level with what funds we have? You can build them. I could buy lots of cars, but can I afford to run the gas and the maintenance and all the rest? That's one question. And on the global, can we lose many high income earners who I've literally, and I've told this around this is a true story. I've had large employers tell me they're moving as soon as they can. And that's not what I want to hear, because I think we provided a very robust set of conditions in the county to maintain situation. So I'm just telling you what I hear, and I'm not saying I'm buying into all of that, but you need to hear from the other side, not just from people who are sitting around tables saying, this is wonderful, we have a big heart, and we all do, but people actually paying who are saying, maybe this isn't where I want to go. So I'll leave it with that. But as far as your two questions, I'm thumbs up.
Commissioner, just to respond very briefly, I know Metro is very cognizant of that very much, that value proposition you're raising. And that is something they view their poll as more of a pulse check. They did talk about doing additional polling because they want to get a better sense of where the populace is. Are people willing to extend even longer some of the SHS revenues, but at a lower tax rate? So that's the piece of what they're contemplating in terms of that report.
I just would leave this analogy. If there was 8 of us up here and they all said, let's vote whether you buy beer for all of us tonight, probably going to lose. And so the issue is it
just 7-1?
Yeah, 7-1. So if the place is high enough, those folks are always going to be outvoted, and they know it. And that's the problem. And so I didn't work in the economic development like Pam and Jerry did for so long, but I'm hearing it really loud and clear.
And I would say, in listening to the information from the pulse check poll and also the discussion at the table, there's a clear understanding of what you're bringing up, and it was the message is there.
Good.
It also creates some of the other pressures that we're trying to deal with, and now we're into that scenario and not dealing with what we came here today for.
Thank you for the excellent work you guys do, though. It really is good. Thank you.
And kudos to our assistant director, Jessica.
Well, I'm saying all of you. It's not one
and
person.
thank you for all your support.
It's a team.
Thank you.
And thank you, Pam, for what you're doing.
Well, yeah, well, it's great to work with the staff. There's no question. They make you smart really fast.
All right. Mr. Munn. This is the highlight of the day.
My day?
My day. I like the topic.
Budget policy isn't the highlight of most people's days. All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Greg Munn. I'm here from the County Finance Office Department. And today's agenda item is to review proposed changes to policy number 405, which is currently titled Fund Balance Target and Reserve Policy. So I've had the opportunity to meet with each of you individually. I just want to express that we've had a team of staff across the county representing different areas within the county that have come together to help work on this. So it's very well balanced and very well represented across the county. So the purpose today is to present a recommended change to this policy number 405, and seek your direction on adoption of the policy. So in terms of background, I'll just give you a little bit of a summary of the topic. Policy 405 was initially adopted on April 20th, 2021, with the purpose of formally establishing the county's policy in the area of fund balance, target management, authorization, utilization of reserves, and restoration of reserves. In 2022, the Finance Department began a review of the county's financial policies and determined that existing policies should be updated and policies should be added to meet Basic Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, best practices and recommendations. In early 2023, the county auditor agreed to perform an independent review of county financial policies. Her report is scheduled to be published this month. In fact, it's on the agenda for tonight's regular business meeting. And as I mentioned, staff previously met with individual board members to review the proposed changes. The update to policy 405 presented today is the first of several updates to existing policies and new policies staff will be developing and bringing to the board for review and adoption over the next year. An edited copy of the original policy showing the recommended changes is attached to the staff report along with a clean copy of the proposed policy. One update I did want to give you is we noticed yesterday that the marked up copy wasn't complete. It was missing three of the final pages. So the link on the website is now has been updated. So it includes the entire edited policy. So with that, I would open it up to questions and policy questions for the board to consider. Does the board support the recommended revised policy and direct staff to present it for adoption at the February 6th regular meeting? If yes, what further information, if any, is needed to assist the board in adopting the revised budget policy as presented today?
All right, it was short and sweet. If someone doesn't mind, I'll jump over to the other finance guy there, Roy. Oh, if you want me, I was going to turn to you, Jerry. Well, I had a discussion with Greg, like all the rest of you, and this is just good practice. We should have done a long time ago. So I commend you. The amount of dollars it might look large, but they're very small in comparison to what our budget is. I fully support what you're doing.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that it's good to have a fresh set of eyes, I guess, at it. Greg, you've been here a little bit longer than a fresh set, but still you're looking at this and kind of turning over some stuff that we should have been doing a while back. So I would certainly agree with that. Just to make sure, though, that I have the right version in front of me, this is a 10-page packet. Lots of red from 7, I guess. I just want to make sure I've got the latest and greatest. I downloaded it when I was at home earlier today, so I want to.
That should be the correct one.
Okay.
I want to say thank you for the briefing ahead of time. And it was time well spent for me. I appreciate it. I'm thumbs up.
You have 4 thumbs up. How many do you need?
Just
Haven't-
4.
I don't
Okay.
have any more.
You have 2 each. You have 8, I think.
Technically, you only need 3, but you got 4.
Take it.
I think.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for the presentation. Yeah. You made up a lot of time.
And you wore a tie.
All right. Well, that brings us into the last item of the day, which is communications. Shall we start with Jerry and go around the table? Are you prepared?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, it's been an interesting, I don't know how many days since we last did this, but the best news I can say is that I didn't lose power and had extra occupants in my household because my son, his wife, and the 9-year-old and the dog did lose the power. So, of course, they always migrate west and they do that. And so that was always, that was fun to do that. I was very thankful and that we didn't lose power. But then you start, then we go back to the old style of everything Zoom. So I attended the Salmonberry Trail Foundation January board meeting, and we had a lot of conversations there about, as you can understand, we're trying to refine the relationship between the Salmonberry Trail Intergovernmental Agency and the Salmonberry Trail Foundation. So we had that conversation as well. And so basically a couple of things going on. Recreational immunity is causing us some issues. And so we're putting up, especially on the 7 miles, I think I already told you this, the 7 miles that we pulled rail is looks very, very nice. And so people are thinking, hey, this is a new trail. And so we've got to put up a button of signs because it isn't a new trail yet. And so we're working on that. We also working on trail design and of course funding. So those are the big issues that we talked about in the Salmonberry Trail Foundation board meeting and also the STIA meeting that was same day. I continue to meet with the governor's staff on the forestry discussion, and we are working towards presenting some options to the governor to see if any of that would work and if we can get that through legislature. So you'll have to stay tuned on that. Also met with Colin Cooper, who's our new executive director for COPAC. And Colin is trying to get up to speed on not only the HCP, but a variety of other things going on at COPAC. So that was a good meeting. Had the AVSAC, Aging Veterans Group meeting last week. And I just have to say that I want to give a shout out to all the volunteers that they have because they couldn't get things done that they need to get done. So their volunteers put in about 361 hours, 11 volunteers, and working with people to make sure that they had all the services that are available to them through the both to the federal government and of course ours. And then I went on Friday. I don't even remember what day it was. Anyway, Chamber put together a legislative gathering. It was supposed to be in person, but it was on Zoom. Had a very good turnout to that. A lot of good information came out of that. A slide presentation that I've asked for a copy of because it was a survey of kind of attitudes around the Tri-County region and Washington County. And to your point, Roy, 56% of the people on this survey said they would move out of Washington County if they had a chance. 56% said they'd move out of Washington County. Now they think Washington County is doing fine. I think they're just fatigued of tax. And I think so, but when you think about looking out and about, I mean, if you don't like the homeless situation here, go to Salem. Then you'll come back and you'll say, this doesn't look so bad. So yeah, there was a lot of information in there. There was a lot of good information, positive information. They think Washington County is safe. They think the sheriff's department's doing a good job. So yeah, as soon as I get it, I will. They're coming out with a press release evidently this week. And then that slide presentation, that survey will be an attachment. So I'll make sure everybody gets that.
And that was from a legislative update?
That was a survey for the legislators.
Oh, so that was information you were providing back to
them, yeah. So
about taxes.
All right, taxes and a variety of other things. Yeah, it was very good. So let's see, the Fair Board, we have one member that we're bringing on this meeting. We have a new member that we brought on just about 3 months ago. And then we have Mitch, who's been there a couple of years. So they all were saying, we don't understand this budget process. We don't understand the financing and all that. So we met last week with Leah and it was a very good meeting. I gave them a quick overview of how special funds work and especially with the fairgrounds and the fair having kind of two pockets there. And then you've got the event center, of course. So that was a good meeting. And then Council of Forest Trust Lands met as well. And we are looking at what kind of communication we're going to present to the Board of Forestry for one last time. That's coming up this week or next week. I can't remember the dates on that. I will be on vacation starting tomorrow, just like everybody else. My flight on Alaska got canceled, so I went to a different airlines, and I think it would be better thing anyway, but I'm leaving tomorrow. And I will be back late Tuesday night. I have two meetings that I have committed to while I am away. And one of them is, of course, the governor's meeting, governor staff meeting on Friday. So I will be in that. And then next Tuesday's work session, I will zoom in on that as well. Hawaii is 2 hours behind us, so it works perfectly. So I can go through those, and then we depart late Tuesday afternoon. So there, I'm done.
All right. Well, I'm glad you didn't lose power last week. So,
And somebody else did.
yeah, I was at my daughter's house for 7 nights and it was an interesting experience.
Here, reverse commute though. I mean, I get the kids, you get to go to your
Yeah,
kids. So,
yep. So,
Doing this
but
well.
it wasn't bad. And, but I guess what I do want to take a moment and talk a little bit about how hard, frankly, District 2 was hit in Washington County. District 2 really was hit very hard. There are trees on homes throughout our county. It's devastating. Leahy Road looks like a battle zone right now. And these are not these are enormous trees. These aren't saplings. These are big trees with lots and lots of damage. So I was very concerned, had a lot of conversations with constituents about the communication that was happening, the customer communication that was happening with PGE. We also had questions about some of the situations that constituents found themselves in, and Stephen Roberts was very helpful. Things like the tree went over, but the question was the water line was from West Slope water was disrupted, but there wasn't clear understanding of where the tree was in the easement or not. I mean, and just the fact that our staff could respond as quickly as they did was great. So all of this was happening while with no power and extremely limited cell phone access. So it was frustrating, and I got a little grumpy during that time. But besides that, I did have a very good conversation with Maria Pope, who's the CEO of BGE. We had a good conversation. I don't even remember what morning it was. I think it was Wednesday morning, or something like that. But the real essence of our conversation was about making sure that we ensure that the communication between the operational crews for PGE and our own operational crews is on point. And without having this type of outage happen in the last few years, there's been employee changes, there's been structural changes, and it was difficult to get that ball rolling. I think that that's a fair way to characterize it. It did get rolling as the outage progressed, but in talking with both Maria Pope and with Randy Ely, it was my recommendation, supported by staff here, that we have a debrief as a follow-up about what went well, what didn't go well, and how can we ensure as we face some more of these situations with climate change and some of the other things that we're seeing in our weather patterns, that we're appropriately positioned to address all of the issues. Maria she said, this is a difficult time for us. We've just had an 18% rate hike this month, and we're having this situation. Customer communication was not the best. Remember, I worked for a electric utility for 21 years. I know what you can and cannot say to the customers, but there wasn't anything in the interim that our constituents were getting that gave them any information at all, even if it's just a tap on the head that says, we know you're still out. In fact, there were many people who were experiencing a situation where when they could get to the web, their home was reported as having power. After they had reported it several times, it would go back and forth. So it was frustrating for a lot of people. But I think, we're on the path to working through those issues and making sure that we have the communication that we need
for our crews to do the type of work that they do and that they did so well throughout this storm. It was amazing. The intersections where streetlights were literally on the ground and the crews were there repairing them right away. In fact, just this morning, I was at the grocery store and saw our crews again at 118th and Cornell working on that intersection where several trees came down and disrupted the whole traffic pattern there. So, but it was a trying time for everybody, and I do want to express my sincere thanks to our crews and the people that were out there in less than pleasant weather dealing with these issues. This week I had an impact coordinating committee meeting for the impact meeting, which is coming up on tomorrow evening. And this will be my first as chair. It's mostly an informational meeting. The agenda is available. We're going to be going over some of the UGR information. We've got new appointments to impact. We're going to be approving those. So it's pretty business as regular. It is a year of significance for impact because we are working through the urban growth report. We're working through a lot of pieces that make this an important year. So we were requesting that not only do we hold some of these virtually, but we are working toward holding more and more in person, because I have a feeling as we get toward the end of the year, there's going to be some issues that I think we all need to be in the room for. So I also attended Mark Jocker's retirement party. Great job by everybody. It was really cool that all of us were there, that all 5 commissioners were there.
Mark who?
Mark, what is that guy's name? He's been gone. I remember him, but it was
He's been gone a
really,
couple weeks. I don't even remember.
I don't remember who was it.
it was well.
Oh
done.
my goodness. Oh my
Very, very well done. I also had that evening the PAB board meeting. So we are working towards through our new applications. And on Thursday this week, I have another set of meetings during the morning that are related to the applications for CDBG and home funding. Let's see, the RDPO meeting was held on Friday, and I'm not sure how John Wheeler makes himself appear at multiple places at one time, but he's amazing. And I didn't have connection. He sat in for me he's always there at the RDPO meetings, but he reported back to me that the main issue that was covered was looking at the budget and looking at the reserve funds for RDPO. Again, John sits on the steering committee for the budget, which is really helpful for us because it allows us to have a clear insight into what's happening with maybe taking some money out of reserve fund and not just increasing the cost to all of the counties and to the participants.
We're all pointing at you. Because I'm a benevolent one. Catherine would have said 5 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
But I think you ought to go through it. Just do it.
Okay. I do, because there's a couple things. So anyway, the RDPO is covered. Last week before, special thanks to Zucker and to Tom Eggleston. There was a Redwell bill that was looking like it was going to go, that could have legs. It was a legislative concept and it could have legs, but through a lot of communication with Senator Solomon and others, it died. So that was good for all of us. This Thursday, I'm going to be going to the CAT with state legislators. I'm working with Zucker on making our ask to the state legislature for the additional money for the CAT. So I'm in the process of getting ready for that. Lastly, what I want to bring up my question about the boards and commissions. Would you like me to wait?
Can we do that after?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay.
Well, since my 5 minute was taken up by Commissioner, Trees, I'll be 5 seconds. I too lost power, but not as significant as you. So my heart goes out to all of you who had to endure all that. It was also a tree that took out the lower power, but it was quickly responded, and I think a few hours later we had power. So just before the nighttime. And I think the aha moment I had, just after coming back of pandemic as a state, as a nation, as a world, I discovered that our region remains unprepared for severe weather crisis, lacking the necessary infrastructure to safeguard lives. Granted that Washington County fared better than other areas, still a life lost is a life lost that could have been prevented. So I really look forward to, I appreciate the conversation you shared with PGE's CEO and look forward to how we can get more prepared. This is unacceptable. In terms of last week, I had JPAC meeting and nothing to take action in terms of what was on the agenda. But it did include a discussion of the JPAC trip, which unfortunately we won't, as your board representative, I can't participate because we have quite a bit of a budget meetings on those dates. So unfortunately, we won't be joining JPAC trip this year. And it's going to happen in May. So I too attended the Washington County Chamber event. Commissioner Willie, I heard the questions you asked. It was really good. It was a great event. It was called the State of Washington County Businesses. And it was really good. I think the poll that they did, that HDM research, some of the numbers were scary. I agree, in terms of where people are, in terms of how they feel the region, and in terms of, do they want to just pack up and leave? It was also interesting that one of the polling they did was about preschool for all was included in there. And it was interesting, some of the numbers, people who oppose it versus people who are for it, were sort of similar in that. And they had a lot more to say. So I'm glad that they're going to share the presentations. I think it's worth looking and it's really worth digging in. Yesterday was the Regional Tolling Advisory Committee meeting, and the media's topic on that agenda was the start of the start, really the the first discussion on net revenue allocation and what a realistic framework might look like. And it was a really robust conversation, and it was led by Councilor Lewis and John Isaacs, who is at the Portland Business Alliance, I think now called the Metro Chamber.
Yeah, it's good.
Right.
Portland Chamber.
You're on it. Okay. Oh, sorry. I don't know why I was listening. You're
No.
WA. Okay. So so that's it. And then I know I have a 1 minute, but one of the other topic I wanted to update for board awareness was yesterday also, I think it was yesterday, the AOC, the Association of Oregon Counties, the Health and Human Services Committee had we've been doing summits, so this was the fourth one. And Senator Kate Lever, who's the Senate Majority Leader, joined that meeting, who also is the co-chair of the Joint Committee on Addiction and Community Safety Response. And what Senator Lieber laid out was a sort of a preview of a legislator fix that's coming in terms of Measure 110 reform related goals for this session, particularly around a potential law enforcement assistant deflection program. And I think the assumption was made that we, Washington County, have that lead program, which we don't. But we clarify that question or that comment for AOC. But it was a really great conversation and more to come on that topic. I don't think I have 5 minutes enough to get on it, but there's a more legislative fix around Measure 110. Recriminalizing is on the table.
Did you get that off? Is there something I'm worried?
No, I'm fine.
Okay,
Yeah, it's okay.
all right,
I try to be, I wrote it down, all of them. So
okay.
I was trying to be succinct in what to elevate. Okay.
I'm gonna steal that book one of these days just to drive you nuts.
It does, it does have a lot of quotes from Tom Carr.
Oh, really? Oh, you'd like to see that book too.
Yeah, right.
He had like a interesting phrasing he would say, I would write down.
Well, thank you for all the good work all of you do. I'll only pick three or four things that I think might be interesting to you. One, at a Walton, what they call BAC meeting, which I regularly attend, Rob Wagner was there, and I asked him the question on tolling because I said, Rob, you and I have known each other a long time. What's your position? He talked for a bit, and I said, Rob, you're not giving me an answer. Tell me exactly where you're at, which I know he was uncomfortable. And he said, I honestly don't like the proposal.
Hmm.
He said, it's not a fair proposal on tolling. We're tolling some people and not others. And so that was an interesting kind of comment from the Senate President. Tonight, WA has which I'm not going to, but they have a legislative meeting out at Brady Park, which is unfortunate. We don't have a representative, but told Elizabeth not to put them on Tuesday nights. That's kind of difficult. She kind of got confused on the Tuesdays because we had an unusual night. The last WEA meeting last Thursday morning, Duncan Weiss, who, if my memory strikes me correctly, I think, Pam, you brought him more than once, the WA meetings. And he was sort of talking the same story we've been talking about. Is the region in trouble? And I suggested that we need to, at some point, be adult enough to look at tax issues as well as just land use and other kinds of issues. We need to take a look and see what's going to keep people here. And Duncan agreed, as well as some other members. There's a new member from Beaverton City Council, and his big issue is he feels that cities do a lot of great work, which I certainly would not dispute at all. And he doesn't understand all these service districts.
Kevin Teeter.
I'm trying to remember his name. I'm sorry, I don't remember who he is, but he made a pitch about it's very costly for cities to annex. And guess what? It's very expensive for us to maintain in incorporated areas. So I think that that's a worthy discussion at some point. Last night, hallelujah, after 2 meetings in 2 weeks, we finally in our act got a work plan together. You talk about sausage meeting, sausage making, when you get 30 some people from the largest cities in the state to the most rural areas, to big transit districts, 4 counties, it's hard to on the fly doing these legislative kinds of fixes to our plan. But anyway, thank goodness that's done. I think that's all you need to know about. Other than I should tell you for full disclosure, I was asked to comment on the recall in King City. Apparently what I wrote was interesting enough for them to put in the Oregonian, so it'll be coming out on Sunday. But recalls are fine actions for people who have committed crime or some ethics violation. This one appears to be because people didn't like a decision. And I don't call anybody out. I just simply say that recalls have their place, but when people follow all the state, regional, county, and their own ordinances, as well as hire consultants and their unpaid people, I mean, these are just volunteers. What else were they to do? And it's a very dangerous precedent because you could be recalling every local government official every time you didn't like their answer. So to me, that's the ballot box. If you don't like who's representing you, go to the ballot box and vote them out. I mean, that's the way you do it. So recall them because you don't like how they vote on a particular issue. But anyway, that'll be in on Sunday. So I will stop and I will turn to Diane. We normally go this way. I'll go this way.
Director Rogers, and good afternoon, Board of Clean Water Services. It's great to see all of you. The Clean Water Services team did really well during the snow and ice operations. It was hard, but they did well. And they are repairing some freeze damage to some of our ancillary systems, water lines and things that froze. We learned a lot about working in the conditions, about our equipment. We had one pump station that had very little sewage flow, so it all froze. The sewage all froze in the pipeline. You could think of names that the team came up with on that particular day, but it's an interesting thing. So they're going to debrief and they're going to look at different improvements that they can make and about working in a condition like this. We did well. There were several power bumps, but we didn't have any outages per se. But we're really rethinking our communications vulnerability because AT&T, some of the towers went down and we weren't able to communicate with some really key people. So the teams, I'm thinking about that. And we're still having some team members with internet outage. So here we depend on shifting to telecommuting, and then we end up with these power and internet outages. So we're thinking through that and how to work through it. I updated the board on the raw sewage overflow that went to Vanno Creek. Portland's pump station it had a pipe fitting apparently that cracked, and sewage came out of their pump station and went into the creek. But we helped respond and let Beaver and Tigard know. The next board learning day is on February 8th, and it's going to start at 9 a.m. at the Tualatin Room. So your board learning packets will be delivered on February 1st.
12 room is which building?
ABC,
ABC?
yeah,
Okay.
our favorite room there.
Yeah.
The April board learning, we're gonna look for another day to reschedule. The team moved the date to April 18th to accommodate the tax season conflicts, but they moved it on the day after my brand new knee is arriving on my left leg. So we'll kind of find maybe another day, but I'm looking forward to that day.
And when you say arriving, you mean having the surgery?
Yeah.
New part.
New parts coming, but I'm looking forward to that day. And but thank you all.
You can order those on Amazon already.
Full ball price.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's the first time I actually got up and I walked to the podium at Mark's party.
I know you
Yeah.
did.
I could walk actually.
Yeah.
So
You're good.
doing pretty good. The new one will be even better. So,
Yeah.
but thank you, everyone. Yes.
All right. Please.
Well, I believe your board heard from me through email and through some phone conversations many times last week, so I'm not going to repeat that information. Thank you, commissioners, for highlighting the great work of Washington County staff as they continue to be really in response mode as we're continuing to be in that cleanup. I want to just highlight that this event impacted multiple departments. Commissioner Treese, thank you for highlighting land use and transportation, but we are really a One Washington County community and organization, and the network of communication and teamwork was just amazing. We did learn a lot, and we will be having, just as we do with every emergency event, that after action debrief to really talk about what did we learn and how can we do better. That's just part of emergency management and also being a learning organization. One of the interesting aspects in this event, due to the large power outages, is the difference in how we collect information or use information and how PGE collects information. PGE collects information based on phone number and account code. We collect information in response by address or street address. And so it's in essence two different languages that are coming together in a time of emergency to try to communicate in a very quick response. So how can we get better at that translation of language? I think one thing that I will just highlight, a shining star, is the positive relationships we have across the county. So our emergency manager, John Wheeler, and PGE's emergency manager, direct communication. So we were able to find the most timely outage information, which shared with your board. Also, within our LUT team, staff directly communicating with PGE to be able to translate those languages. So as soon as they cleared a wire, we could come in. So I think there's opportunities for improvement. Thank you, Commissioner Treese, for highlighting the conversation you had with Maria Pope. And I believe the chair had shared before she had left, she also had a conversation with Maria Pope. That relationship continues. For your awareness, I am meeting with Randy Early as well as KJ Lewis on Thursday of this week to talk about what could some next steps in that design process look like. So that is moving forward. One item that I want to draw your attention to that we did not, I would say you did not receive timely communications on was, and I actually didn't plan this entry at the same time, was related to our Donald E. Long detention facility. in Multnomah County. Your board may have seen that in the media prior to getting a notification of staff that that facility was out of power for a period of time. Really appreciate the efforts that Multnomah County staff did to ensure the safety of the youth, as well as food. And we need to make sure that we have streamlined communications as they are, in essence, the steward of our youth during an event like this. So that is another opportunity for improvement. And in that case, we have 3 new department directors over those departments. So huge opportunity to come together, and how are we in service as we work through these collaborative contracts and agreement relationships. So more to come on that as we move forward. One item that we didn't touch on last week, because as you're aware, the board meeting was canceled, and in its place, your board did adopt an emergency declaration. As a reminder, that emergency declaration does lapse to today, the 23rd, and we will not be coming back to your board for extension of that declaration. Want to go back to the strategic plan update. Ms. McKibben, do you have the handouts?
Already here.
Oh, you did? Oh my gosh, she's quick. I didn't even see it.
Stealth.
Okay.
Stealth.
That's great. I love when people are one step ahead. Okay. So, as your board may recall, on January 11th at your roundtable, there were a couple items within the strategic plan update that you had asked us to go back and just do a little more work on. And since we didn't have all of our colleagues in the room, we wanted to take that opportunity and time. So let me walk you through the areas to look at of changes. Those include the juvenile department, sheriff's department, and district attorneys. So within your document on page 4, you will see the juvenile department. We deleted the information about an internal facing framework. There was language about the 5-driver framework, and kept it at a goal high level to avoid any confusion. And then, is everyone comfortable with that change?
Yes.
Thumbs up?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Thumbs up? Okay.
I remember that conversation.
Okay, then let's move on to the sheriff's department. And the sheriff's department, if you go back one page, on page 3, there is proposed language, and I can read that. This Washington County Sheriff's Office provides patrol to rural and unincorporated areas of the county, operates a countywide jail, investigates major crimes, and provides other support services to the community to ensure public safety. To do this, we prioritize the recruitment and retention of high-quality staff, conduct ongoing evaluations of jail capacity and booking criteria, provide fingerprinting, civil process, and document services, and maintain criminal records, and use trauma-informed approaches to emergency response while fostering a culture of professionalism, compassion for enhanced public safety.
Much better.
Yeah, I like it. Mhm. Now,
Oh,
good.
you got some red on the left side. Is that something you added there, or?
That was just the addition within the description of the sheriff's office, wanting to just put a finer point that it's rural and unincorporated areas.
Okay.
The next one is district attorney's office. That is on page 5. And since you're just seeing this now, I will read that as well. The Washington County District Attorney's Office seeks justice and prosecutes dangerous offenders and those who harm quality of life to protect our community in Washington County. We accomplish our mission in a variety of ways, including holding accountable people who commit all levels of crime, addressing root causes of crime through specialty courts and treatment programs, and by protecting victims and vulnerable populations.
So should it's right in the middle. We accomplish our mission in a variety of ways, including holding accountable people. Shouldn't it be people accountable?
Yes. Or it could say holding accountable,
think
comma, people
they're-
who commit.
Yeah, I don't think they
Yeah.
deal with accountable
Yeah.
people.
Okay. Yep, we can make that change.
They deal with unaccountable people.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't hold the non-accountable.
So with that change, thumbs up on the district attorneys. Okay. Just want to appreciate just the great work and collaboration between Sheriff Massey, Kevin Barton, and of course, the great work Aaron Calvert does to coordinator, public safety and justice.
He's the only one here that we're only gonna give her credit.
No, I saw our juvenile director somewhere.
Oh, okay,
Like,
right.
where'd he go?
Good job, sorry.
Jennifer Curley teacher. So then let me just ground you back on next steps. So with the thumbs up of this version of goals, we will begin the stakeholder and community engagement work that we previously discussed. There was that pesky weather event that happened last year that really disrupted our desire to get that work going. So that will commence now starting this week. And that concludes my update.
Good job on that.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Just want to give a couple highlights. We haven't had a chance to talk in a little while on the recreational immunity issue that Commissioner Willie raised. There is an effort being conducted right now to get a legislative fix. It's not exactly what we want, but it's a stopgap measure to address the issue of us getting sued when people are recreating in our public. Yeah.
Is this, are you referring to the AOC work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is a proposed bill before the legislature this session on that. But there will be opportunities to think a little more globally for the long session as well. You've probably heard in the news that the Grants Pass versus Johnson case was taken up by the United States Supreme Court. This relates to homelessness, and the Ninth Circuit, which is basically the Western United States, including Oregon. The Ninth Circuit has ruled a number of times, including Martin versus Boise case, as well as this Grants Pass case, obviously in Oregon, that it's an Eighth Amendment violation. It's cruel and unusual punishment to criminally trespass people off of public property. We've done a lot of work. You've seen the ordinance on time, place, and manner regarding homelessness. We don't know what the United States Supreme Court is going to do, but it may substantially impact the lay of the law of the land in Oregon and the Western United States, and actually in the entire country. But that case will be, we don't know when it's going to be argued, but it's probably going to be an end of year decision, which is into June for the United States Supreme Court. So more to come on that. Here's a quick update on your board's flavor ban of nicotine. We have 2 Court of Appeal cases going on right now regarding that ordinance. One is regarding the election. That's already been argued. We're just waiting for a decision by the Court of Appeals, the Oregon Court of Appeals. And then we have the actual challenge to the ballot, or the language of the measure itself. That was previously before our Washington County Circuit Court, and the court ruled that the county's ordinance was preempted by state law. We have appealed that up to the Oregon Court of Appeals, and we are waiting. It's been briefed, and we're just awaiting a scheduling of oral argument in that case. You've probably also heard about Multnomah County's ordinance as well, which is substantially similar to Washington County's. They had their Multnomah County Circuit Court rule the opposite of us, and then the opponents to their ordinance appealed it up to the Oregon Court of Appeals. We could see potentially the court consolidating those 2 cases because it's essentially the same type of argument, but we'll wait to see what the Court of Appeals does in that. And finally, just real quickly, we've been involved with the Mink case, which is the case about aid and assist and the use of the Oregon State Hospital. I've been invited to participate on yet another work group regarding that, and I will be representing counties on that because we are amicus in the case. So more to come on that. We haven't had a meeting yet, but it's supposed to be solution oriented, and hopefully that's where we go. That concludes my report.
Can you remind us what we're amicus to, like in particular? I know we didn't join Marion County suit.
Yes, we are amicus to Disability Rights Oregon's case against the state of Oregon on a very particular issue, which was releasing individuals or having people not stay in our jails beyond 7 days before they go to the state hospital when they're unable to aid and assist in their own defense. And the solution, as you may recall, by the federal judge was to shorten the timelines that the individuals could be in the state hospital, which has caused a huge influx of people unable to aid and assist, bouncing back to Washington County and our behavioral health team to provide community restoration is what it's called, and has doubled, tripled the caseload for our behavioral health. So that's what this is about.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
But I have one request.
Yes, sir.
Doing a good job. Screw up a little bit. These folks don't always ask you. They always want you to be on these statewide.
Yes, I actually almost took a pass on this one, but this is too important to the county.
Okay, one other quick item, and I will plead mea culpa. It was, in fact, Marnie's the one who got me thinking about it, and that was that she presented so I'll blame her. She had a particular appointment that needed to be made to one of our committees, and so I said, gee, is there a lot of committees that we have unfilled? I mean, we have this multitude process, and I found out that there were indeed a lot of them. So my acting capacity tonight, I said, why don't we just bring them forward and you all could make a decision as if you don't want to do it that way. I mean, you can read just like anybody else, and we can pass them on through and we can get a whole bunch of things filled. So that was the impetus for it. In the meantime, I've heard some who said, gee, that all makes sense and we can probably do it in one motion. I've got that. Other than maybe we need to spend a moment on the planning commission. Beyond that, I haven't heard any other comments. So,
And I just like to say thank you because I know I'm very interested in making sure that we have a public discussion about the planning commission. So I just want to be on record as making that request of our LUT.
so should we take? Are you asking that we take it off the agenda tonight?
No, I'm asking that we do it right now.
Oh, okay.
Question.
So we
Can we start with you then, or do you want to start with us?
So
You said the discussion you wanted to have.
Well, I
Vice
want-
Chair Rogers, Director Roberts is here and staff can make just a quick presentation of what the
Can
record.
I ask one question, my fellow commissioners? Do you have any, other than the planning commission, do you have any problems with just advancing all the rest of them tonight? One motion, we get them done and we'll fill a whole bunch of positions. Works for me.
I'm fine.
Okay, so Stephen, would you come up and tell us a little bit about the planning commission?
I just want to clarify too, Vice Chair Rogers, that I just want to hear what our department's thoughts are around the appointments. And then I think I'm comfortable keeping the planning commission in the entire package this evening.
And it'll be one motion tonight. It'll be, I think, Tanya said she go ahead and read it and that'll just say, various, here's the people. And
Thank you.
So the action would be motion to approval of boards and commissions, staff recommendations for D1 through D4 and D6 through D8. Your board would take action on D5 separately because that is the bylaws for acre. So that's a very different item than a board or commission appointment.
please, yeah.
We'll give you a really quick update on our thinking behind the recommendations for planning commission appointments. So Aaron Wardell, our planning and development services manager, will do that quickly, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you have or provide any additional info.
Perfect.
Thanks, Stephen. So we're really fortunate with our applicants to the Planning Commission this time around that we had a number of very qualified applicants. So we had the opportunity to review the applicants we had, and we had the opportunity to think about our planning commission and quite frankly, some of the challenges that they've had over the last couple of years. So we identified a need for people with additional experience directly with development, people with experience being on other boards and commissions, and people with experience in legal frameworks. And so given that, we were really lucky to have 3 applicants who we think will really elevate the experience level of our planning commission in those 3 different areas. And so we're happy to bring those 3 candidates forward. They are Felicita Monteblanco, who is currently a member of the THPRD board, Eric Peterson, who is a developer, he works for Newland, and Eric McClendon, who is an attorney, not a land use attorney, but an attorney.
Yeah, and I would add to bolster what Aaron was just saying, we have struggled, I think, with a lot of our commissions, not just this one, but to find candidates that have a really set of skills and experiences that are really relevant to the work that the Planning Commission does. I would note this is a very specific kind of work that they do. Some of it's quasi judicial and it very much based on evaluating, does a particular proposal meet a very specific set of criteria. Some of their work is legislative, so policy-based and making recommendations to your board, but also needs to be very much grounded in that same sort of framework around the technical criteria that are applicable to a particular application. And so I think that's where we've felt that maybe we could use a little bit of reinforcement in some of those areas. So to Aaron's point, we think we have a good slate of candidates here to do that.
And there are 3 seats that are currently open, correct?
You describe where they're at, which districts, and I know 2 of them are not.
Yeah, so the planning commission appointments do not have to be related to a specific commission or district, but just to make that clear that it's not required. However, we do strive for 2 from each district, just as a general practice. That way we know that we have geographic representation on the planning commission. So with the 3 applicants we have before you, we have 1 from District 1. And so our idea was that she would be the at-large appointment to the planning commission. We have 1 from District 3, and that's your district where we have a vacancy. And then we have 1 from District 2 who we'd also like to put forward for one of the District 3 vacancies as well.
And I tell you that, the one is from District 2. I think that person's outstanding. So I'm fine with the ones that I have.
Mhm.
Any comments that you would want to make regarding District 1 persons that you know?
No, I think, thank you for connecting with Felicita. I think I can only speak to Felicita. I haven't had the opportunity to meet with the other folks, but outstanding resume and background. Felicita does live in District 1, and I did have a conversation and I connected. So it's just worked out that there's the at-large position just became vacant for, so yeah, I'm glad she's being put forward. And I didn't realize that there were others who were being also asking to rejoin, because I think one of the member, Shushmita, is reapplying. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a staff recommendation, so we appreciate your hard work, and I'm comfortable with this recommendation.
Chair, who is not here today.
Yeah.
Is she fine with the at-large appointment?
Yeah, to answer your question, yes, Director Roberts and I met with Chair Harrington prior to her vacation and discussed these, and she was very comfortable.
Thank you for your review.
I'm good.
Sounds like we'll just take it in one big happy motion. If you want to be mad at me, you can be that, but I think it sure got us a lot of people going through. Yeah, thank you, Marnie. All right, is there anything else to come before us? If not, we're adjourned. Good night.
Thank you.
2.5 hours.
On time too. Yeah. 1 minute early.